welcome to the October 30th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference and is also being broadcast by FCTV on cable channel 9. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. We're missing one commissioner tonight. However, we have a quorum. We're moving forward. And as a reminder for commenting, I'll call on each of you in turn so we're not tripping over each other, and that all votes are done by roll call. So when I call your name, please state your name and your vote for the record, even if you've made the motion or the second. To our public attendees, at any time during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. If you'd like to participate in a specific hearing, let us know via the chat function. Then at the appropriate time, I will call for public comment. When you are selected, you will be moved into the hearing as a participant. As such, you must have your video enabled. Be succinct and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Regarding RDAs, under a request for determination of applicability, the applicant is asking the Commission to determine if the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw apply to their proposed project. A negative determination is that the provisions of the Act and/or the bylaw do not apply. Therefore, the project may proceed as proposed. A positive determination means the provisions of the Act and/or the bylaw may in fact apply or may require some conditions. Therefore, the project could require a notice of intent application. So as an applicant, the simplest thing is you want to hear a negative determination. Excuse me. For the benefit of anyone waiting for a particular hearing tonight, and so that you're not waiting unnecessarily, the following hearings are expected to be continued: 117 Little Neck Bars Road, 115 Childs River Road, and 43 Neves Way. All right, first up, vote minutes, October 16, 2024. Anyone?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve those minutes.
Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes of 10/16 as submitted. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Ron?
Driscoll, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted the minutes of October 16. Thank you, Kristen. Next up are requests for a continuance under a notice of intent. First up, Nordo Nissi III and Jane Nissi, 117 Little Neck Bars Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to reconstruct a garage, install a pool with patios, construct a deck and rinse station, and install mitigation plantings. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant has requested a continuance until January 15th.
Oh my.
One,
All right.
2, 3, 4. 4 continuances.
Yeah.
So moved.
Bird, so move. Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until January 15th, which assumes gives them plenty of time to be ready. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting on the continuance. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Ron?
Driscoll, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until 1:15. Can't believe we're talking about next year. Oh boy. All right. Next request for continuance is Taylor May Carroll, trustee, 115 Childs River Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to license, maintain, and construct an extension on an existing licensed walkway and relocate one existing dolphin pile. Jen,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until December 4th.
Gladfelter, so moved.
Bird second.
all right, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until December 4th. Questions or comments? We're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve?
Batten, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this hearing until December 4th. Next up, John and Lisa Almquist, 43 Neves Way, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct and license a new walkway and pier, construct a patio, shed, landing and stairs, remove hardscape, and install plantings. Jen,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until November 13th.
Bird so moved. Driscoll second. Does that give us a lot that night?
What was that, Ron?
I said, how many does that give us that night?
Or Courtney, it gives us on the 13th, if we won't continue anything else, it gives us 4 new notices and 4 continueds.
Okay.
so needless to say, nothing else for the 13th then.
Correct.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until the 13th. Questions or comments? Steve?
Yes. I have a precinct meeting that night.
Okay. Steve.
So at 6:30, so I will join you late, I imagine.
Okay, so this hasn't been opened yet, so right now the quorum can be all of us.
Okay,
So all I'm saying is thank you for the notice, but that at the moment won't put us into a quorum issue.
okay.
All right. The motion and the second is continue this till 11:13. We're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Batten, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until November 13th. Next up are requests for determination of applicability. First up, James Bryan and Sarah Smith, 7 Lawrence Street, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise, R-A-Z-E, and rebuild a single-family dwelling with deck, steps, dry wells, and a bulkhead. Ms. Bergeron.
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird so moved. Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? We're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Batten, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, David John Cowig Trust, 67 Sandpiper Circle, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to pump, fill, and abandon or remove existing cesspools and install a new Title V sewage disposal system. Alyssa.
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed, and this project solely takes place in an AE flood zone.
Bird so moved. Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? We're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Batten, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Gerald F. Jr. and Irene D. Luby, trustees, 35 Inkberry Lane, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to abandon an existing soil absorption system and install a new soil absorption system. Alyssa.
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed, and this project solely takes place in an AE flood zone.
Bird so move. Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? We're voting. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien aye.
Ron.
Driscoll aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up are continued requests for determination of applicability. First up, Christina Gentile, 39 Davis Neck Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to vista prune according to FWR 10.18 10B. Alyssa.
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird so move. Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? We're voting. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien aye.
Ron.
Driscoll aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Thank you, Alyssa and Fallon, for that effort. Next up are hearings under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. As a reminder, public commenting is limited to 3 minutes. So I encourage you to stay within the purview of this board, which are the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Wetlands Bylaw, and how they pertain to a particular application. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. First up, Dale K. Weldon, trustee. Dale Catherine Weldon Revocable Trust, 2013. 129 Racing Beach Avenue, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a deck and install the associated mitigation plantings. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Tom Bunker up from BSS Design to present his project. Good evening, Tom.
Good evening. I must say
Mr.
first, I'm kind of disappointed. I don't see any Halloween costumes there, but I'm not wearing one either, so I guess that makes us even. I was thinking about that as I was walking over tonight, but I'll get right to it. I may share my screen.
Yes, sir.
For the record, my name is Tom Bunker, BSS Design, and there's the screen. So we prepared this. This is on. We prepared this plan for Weldon. It's on Racing Beach Avenue. The Buzzards Bay is just to the left, the west on this side. Actually, there's a house just to the left on that lot, but then further to the left, out of view, is Buzzards Bay over there, and this part of Racing Beach Ave is the furthest north road in the Racing Beach subdivision. Just to get you a little idea of where this is. There's this wetland right here, which is goes through culverts and ditches under several roads. There's a area of wetland running all over in there. And so we have this house lot here. It was reconstructed in 2004. The house was reconstructed, and so now. And you know, I checked the plans. This is basically in the same condition, although Alyssa pointed out a few changes in the staff report. But actually, you can see where made it a little harder to fit the deck on. So you see the mitigation planting was a line along there, and then the lawn line is crept up into this location. So it's kind of reduced reduce the room for the deck and reduce the room for the mitigation. This house is entirely in the flood zone, and the lot is, mostly in the zone A. All the work is in the zone A of this wetland, and also of the coastal bank that runs along here. So we fit this lot in right here. It's rather deck. It's 1 story up, so it's at the elevation 17.5 roughly here, the upper floor level, and proposing a patio underneath. This deck is 369.6 square feet, which by the calculations needs, if I can get out there, wherever that, 1,127 square feet. We're also mitigating for this generator right here, which was in there without permission. So between them, we have 1,127 square feet of mitigation, which we put in here, keeping 10 feet away from the structure. The structure stays 11 feet away from the edge of the lawn in this location. The garage is 20 feet from the wetland, and the deck is 27 feet from the wetland. And the deck is also further from the coastal bank than the garage is from the coastal bank. So it's not moving closer. We've done the 3-to-1 mitigation for these areas. And first I've ever heard you said that to reduce 1 tree. So I put in 4 trees because 4 trees had been on the site prior. There'd been wind damage and whatever else, and the staff report says that they could pare that down to 3 trees. Unfortunately, the staff report also says that the walkway up here got widened, and there's another bit of patio here that we didn't pick up, and we show the planter in the wrong shape here. So there are some changes we'll have to make because it involves more mitigation. Obviously you'll need a continuance so that we can get the mitigation on, so that you can vote on that. I'll request a continuance. I wanted to get on just from 2 weeks from now, but apparently you say the 13th is full. But maybe if we get enough questions out of the way here, there'll be very little to talk about if I can get that on the November 13th rather than waiting another week. But I'll take this down and then we can talk.
Excellent. Thanks, Tom.
Okay.
Jen.
Yes. How much mitigation do you have to put on, Tom?
Well, I haven't gone out. I just got the staff report yesterday, and I haven't gone out to calculate it and to know how much more has to go in.
Okay. All right. I think that's it. And just to let you know, please inform your client. They are encroaching on Salt Pond Area Bird
Right.
Sanctuary's land, and we have informed them. So we will be sending them the plan to show them. And they may require I know I've talked to the executive director. She does want that property restored. So if you could add the mitigation onto Salt Pond Area Bird Sanctuary's property as well. And I'll work with Katie Taylor about, getting written permission after the fact to do that on their property. But we did call her the other day. And let her know that, there was some encroachment. And Alyssa, did you send her the plan?
I did. I explained it to her, and so she was seeking restoration over there.
Okay. So if you could add restoration of that area as well, Tom, and let your clients know that, that would be great. And that is actually all I have. And I don't think it's the first time you've heard us say that maybe there are 1 too many trees on the property. We don't want it to be all overgrown, and we want the trees to grow.
Right.
So, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Alyssa.
Yeah, just a note for the trees, if we want to do that typical special condition, we can work with the applicant when planting time comes and try to find some good locations where they have plenty of room to grow. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments. Betsy.
So I just have a comment at the risk of alienating the chairman and the others. I would like to see if we could give Tom be able to come back next week with this, because otherwise it'll not be pushed out until December or on the 13th. So I'm just putting a word in for that, because I don't think this is a complex thing to figure out. That's all. Thanks,
No.
Jamie.
All right.
I could certainly get the plan in by a couple of days before, by Monday, with the additional mitigation in, if that would work.
That'll work, Tom. That's fine.
Okay.
You
thank
mean Monday the 10th?
Monday, well, if we're talking
No,
about
no.
the 6th,
She's
it'll be
talking
the
about
4th.
next week.
No, I'm saying he should be able to do this on the 13th, which means he'd have to
On
have
the
it a
13th.
weekend ahead of time.
Oh, for the 13th, okay. I
Yeah.
thought you said the 6th, okay.
Yeah, because we're
Say
kind
that.
of filled up on the 13th, but otherwise should be pushed off into December.
December.
So I'm just trying to move you up, Tom.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It could be quick if I just get the additional mitigation and restoration on.
That's all, Jamie, that I have.
Muted. Courtney, can you hear me?
No. You're having
He
a
said-
little.
He said
we couldn't hear
Courtney.
you. We couldn't hear you, Jamie.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, Courtney, you're up.
Yeah, I just had a question. Maybe we could do it on the 6th, or is that pushing it?
Courtney, there's not going to be enough people here on the 6th, or we're missing 3 of you. So no, we can't have it
Okay.
on the 6th.
All right, well, I'll let it go. I have no other comments.
All right. Despite what Betsy said, I don't have a problem trying to squeeze it in on the 13th. I mean, the thing we have about continuances, generally speaking, our continuances are to deal with specific issues, right? In other words, we're not starting the whole hearing. So as long as the applicant doesn't come in trying to restart the whole hearing and only addresses the issues, it does go pretty quick. So if we can do that, go for it, just because I just want to disagree with Betsy, that's all. All right. Kevin,
I'm only trying to give you a hard time, Jamie.
I know.
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Ron,
I'm all set, thanks. No comments.
all right. Steve,
The only comment I have is there's not a lot of room left.
Yeah.
For mitigation, but clever people figure out the answers.
Well, we'll see where it can go.
Okay,
all right.
that's all, sir.
All right. So Tom, if you, excuse me, if you can work that out, and if for some reason you can't, if it won't fit, you don't have time, whatever, just let us know so we're not spinning our wheels on the 13th.
Yeah.
You know?
Will.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat regarding this project, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, at the
All right.
request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue this to November 13th.
Bird second.
Oh, did you say the 13th? How are we gonna? Never mind, I'm kidding. Relax. Man, you guys are so uptight on Halloween Eve. All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this till 11:13. Last call, questions or comments? All right, we're voting on the continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Matt and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this hearing until 11:13.
All
Thank you,
right.
Tom.
Thank
Good
you.
night, Tom.
Good night. Happy trick or treating.
Night, Tom. What are you going as tomorrow, Tom?
I think just myself is scary enough.
Okay.
Took my
Good night,
line.
Tom.
I'm going as a member of the ZBA.
Oh, yeah.
Never mind. All right. Let's
Okay.
see.
Good night.
Good night,
Night,
Tom.
Tom.
Next one's been previously continued, brings us to Richard C. Barrett, trustee, Richard C. Barrett Revocable Trust, number 3, Childs River Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install a vinyl sheet piling bulkhead behind a failing timber retaining wall. And we're going to open simultaneously number 9, Childs River, LLC, 9 Childs River Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install a vinyl sheet piling bulkhead behind a failing timber retaining wall. Jen.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I have promoted Mike Bruselli from Falmouth Engineering, Brad Holmes from ECR, I always forget the initials on that one, and Brian Wall, all to represent their clients at 3 and 9 Childs River Road.
All right, so if there's 3 of them, they get 3 minutes each. It's 9 minutes, guys. You ready for that?
We're ready.
Ha ha ha. Yeah, not on my best day.
I'm
Mr.
gonna dress up-
Borselli,
I'm going to dress up as a difficult to work with conservation commissioner.
hey, hey, hey.
He's not dressing as Courtney.
All right. Mr. Borselli, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant along with Brad Holmes from ECR Environmental and Brian Wall from Troy Wall Associates. This is a continued hearing. We've continued it on 2 occasions, I believe. We met with your staff on site to go over some issues and concerns. Subsequent to that meeting, we retained the services of ECR and Brad, and we met on the site with the likely contractor who would do the construction of the sheet pile bulkhead replacement. We came up with what we think is a good solution to mitigate issues and concerns raised by your staff. We then filed the revised plans, and then we had a follow-up meeting with your staff yesterday just to go over them before the hearing in case there were any pre-hearing questions. So I'm going to go through the revisions. I'm going to share my screen with your permission.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to zoom in on my plan to the areas colored in green for your reference. Childs River, which is a channel between our property and directly across from us is Bosun's Marina. There's several boats that use that facility. We think that one of the reasons that there's erosion of the area behind the bulkhead is due to a lot of boat activity, boats turning, docking, backing out, a lot of propeller wash occurs. This is the very upper reaches of Childs River, just before the Route 28 overpass bridge. This dock here is an existing fixed licensed dock that's parallel to shore. And along there is a timber bulkhead that's deteriorated, and higher tides, spring tides are starting to invade over the top of it and cause erosion to this narrow band of salt marsh that is shown on the plan with the salt marsh symbols, and it has this green line with triple dots. It's a narrow band. I'm tracing it with my mouse. Between the seaward edge of that salt marsh and the bulkhead is an area that's devoid of any salt marsh vegetation. It's basically mud. And what's happening over time is that there's erosion, and the salt marsh is starting to break apart and slide into the channel. There was concerns originally about our ability to install the sheet piling without damaging the salt marsh. We think we can do it. The contractor has indicated to us that he can do it, and we're going to show you why we can do it and how we're going to improve things. With that, I'm going to look at and share with you the typical cross section. This sheet piling is shown here, right behind the existing timber bulkhead, which is shown red. The toe of this little escarpment in the existing salt marsh is right here. These smaller salt marsh symbols represent that. These larger salt marsh symbols represent an area that we're proposing to plant with new salt marsh plugs. So there's a narrow band. It varies from 2.5 feet to 8 feet behind the bulkhead that the sheeting can be installed without penetrating the existing salt marsh. The tie-back rods, which are helicals, can be installed, and they're installed routinely at an angle. They can be installed by reaching over and installing them so that they go under the existing salt marsh and into the slope landward of the salt marsh. So a qualified contractor can do this work without any damage to the existing salt marsh. In an effort to restore the salt marsh, ECR submitted a memo to you, and we've adopted his recommendations and showed them on the cross section, where we would install some planting media that would be appropriate for salt marsh plugs, Spartina alterniflora and Spartina patens. And that would allow us to create a planting bed for the salt marsh plugs. There are weep holes proposed in the bulkhead. And the tidal range, if you look here, mean high water is just at the top of the deteriorating wall. Higher than mean high tides, such as spring tides, would flow against the wall and be able to continue to provide the saltwater intrusion necessary for the salt marsh through two ways: the weep holes, and naturally by flowing around the end of our bulkhead, which is happening now. There is a return, but it doesn't cut off the tidal flow on this side, and the same is true for the southern side down here. There's a dock next door, and the water flows through, and that's what's allowing the salt marsh to grow and try to hang on. The bulkhead would help mitigate against further erosion of the existing salt marsh, and the salt marsh plugs would be restoration and a widening of the band of salt marsh behind the bulkhead. I've tried to show you that by shading this area in a light green to distinguish it from the existing salt marsh. So if you were to approve the project, the way this would go would be the sheet piling would be installed and the tie rods would be installed. That would be done. Then there would be some plant media that's consistent with what salt marsh plugs like, placed up on average 8 inches in thickness behind here. We calculated that volume to be 10 cubic yards. It's effectively a half dump truck load for a order of magnitude on the size of that. It could be placed by hand, raked, and then the salt marsh plugs could be installed. That's probably the extent of my expertise. Brad is here. He can answer more specific questions, but we think with this methodology and careful installation, the salt marsh that exists won't be damaged, and we have an opportunity to not only prevent erosion and make my client happy, but we also have an opportunity to add more salt marsh and widen that band, and it should it should stay and no longer a road away. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Brad and then Brian, and then we're all here for questions.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Good evening, members of the commission. Brad Holmes with ECR. Mike explained the project well. There's an opportunity to create new salt marsh to restore the area that is eroded. And once that takes, which is our intent, is it will help to protect the salt marsh edge that's eroding now. We would plant Spartina alterniflora, which is the wetter salt marsh, mainly through the area, and then a band of the drier salt marsh plants, the Spartina patens, along the edge against the existing salt marsh. There will be some access into the work areas. So what we're proposing is just some pruning back, if necessary, of some of the groundsel bush, or even just tying it and pulling it back so that an excavator can reach in and dump a bucket load of sand. We can also wheelbarrow sand in and use the existing ramps and use the existing dock to dump sand with laborers stationed in that area, raking it into place and tucking it under the existing salt marsh that's overhanging into the river. So it certainly can be done. It can be done with care. The plugs would be planted approximately 12 inches on center, and it allows for restoration. And I did get a chance to coordinate with Mike and Brian earlier and talk with Jen and Alyssa yesterday, and we did look at the Division of Marine Fisheries comment original letter that I hadn't seen, and they were asking if there's a possibility for salt marsh restoration as well. So it's something that was on their mind. So with that, I'll bring it back to Brian and Mike or your questions, but that's.
If I could just interject one thing, you just reminded me of, Brad, and that is yesterday Jen suggested that we submit these plans to DMF for further comment, which we did by email yesterday, and your staff was copied on that. We expect we need a continuance to give them time to comment. I did want to show Brad was involved with another project similar to this, and he shared this photo. This is, maybe you can explain where this is, Brad, and this is an example of how this can be done.
Sure. This was the Route 28 bridge in Dennis. You guys probably know it better than me, but at the bridge replacement work in around 2013 or so, this is an area where they restored salt marsh by placing sand and placing the salt marsh plugs in the sand. We would be using the same methodology as this. I was also involved in the monitoring and reporting of the follow-up years. I'd be happy to provide that, to the commission if you're interested. But it did take, I haven't been there since 2015 or 16 because the project was closed out. But in my time, it was a successful project.
All right. Mr. Wall, I believe it's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Brian Wall. I also consulted with Mike and with Brad about this, and I submitted a letter. And the purpose of my letter is simply to point out to the commission what applicable performance standards we think are relevant to this project. And it's salt marsh 1032.5 in the state regs and 1032 in your Falmouth local regulations. And the state and the local regulations in this instance are essentially identical. And the performance standard is that the project shall not destroy any portion of salt marsh and shall not have an adverse effect on the productivity of the salt marsh. And we have two contentions. One is that the project does not do either, and so therefore it complies with the performance standards. But further to the discussions we had yesterday, when this concept of salt marsh rehabilitation was discovered in the DMF email and further discussed amongst the team, I noted that your regulations also have at subpart 7, so that's FWR 10.327, it says that a project which will restore or rehabilitate salt marsh or create salt marsh may be permitted. So we believe that this project meets the performance standard and also meets the other performance standard regarding creation of salt marsh. And therefore, we think the project can be approved.
All right, thank you, sir. Jen,
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Brad, are you going to conduct the restoration yourself or your team?
I'll definitely put a proposal together for it and coordinate with our team and the applicant and provide a proposal. I can't say that we're not hired yet, but I would like to, yes.
Okay, so don't have a comfort level if I don't know who's doing the work. So that's kind of important to get
We're going
kind
to
of
highly
locked down.
encourage Mr. Barrett to.
I understand that, Mike. I know you can't force someone to hire someone, but this isn't for the, unlicensed, untrained land, you know what I mean? So that would be one concern. Thank you for resubmitting it to DMF. Appreciate that. Thank you for, you said 10 cubic yards, Mike?
Yes.
10 cubic yards. Okay, so 10 cubic yards. Brad, you said excavator. Can you
Well,
guys bring it in by hand?
we could. I was looking at the plan again where Mike had it on the screen, and there is 2 access points with ramps onto the pier. It would be possible to put it in wheelbarrows and dump it from the pier side or the dock side. I was envisioning that a excavator, when I say excavator, with a small bucket would kind of lift over from the landward edge with the excavator arm stationed and drop the sand with the laborers on either side kind of breaking it out. But it could be done with wheelbarrows coming up through the dock and dumping that way.
Yeah, I don't like it over the top. There's trees over there. There's the Baccharis over there. I don't know how you would get an excavator in close enough in each of those points to reach over and dump it in. So we would, if the board approves it, it would be conditioned to be wheelbarrowed in by hand. Like you can dump it somewhere on the property and get it in. I'm not saying you have to leave it up by the road and lug it in because it's a kind of a long walk, but
If we were using any equipment, it would be a mini excavator, one of those little toy ones, not a big excavator.
okay.
Just
Plant material. Is it plant medium or sand? We've heard both.
The same. I think we're using it as the same. It would be coarse sand.
Coarse sand. Okay. Coarse sand. I suggest somebody drive down to Dennis and take a picture of how that little salt marsh is doing. I'd be very interested to see it today. Not only your monitoring reports, Brad, but what it looks like today. It's 10 years, so I'd be really interested to see how the marsh does. And so that we'd like to see that because we were not part of, you guys didn't show us those pictures yesterday. So, or I would have said it yesterday. Somebody get down to Dennis and take some pictures.
Yeah, I'll email the monitoring reports.
Thank you, Brad. That would be helpful. But again, I also want to see kind of what it looks like today from that angle. That would be helpful.
we can do that.
And the staff shared this with the project team yesterday. We're still just not comfortable. There are a lot of unknowns. We don't know how that salt marsh is going to react. We don't know the damage that's going to be done. We don't know what cutting off the at least a majority of that water, even though there are weep holes, is going to do. And there's no plan in place for what happens if that salt marsh is adversely affected. Now the hope is that it's not. The hope is that it, you enhance the salt marsh. But yesterday there was a lot of possibly and potentially and it should and the intent is, and so it really is still leaving the staff a little concerned with that marsh. And again, this sentiment was shared with the project team yesterday, so they are aware of our concern and uneasiness with this project. And that's all I really have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Alyssa,
Nothing to add. Thank you.
okay. I want to ask the obvious question, and I know you can't answer definitively, Mike or Brad or Brian. What happens to the existing salt marsh if nothing is done?
If nothing were done, I think what would continue to happen is it would continue to degrade and get eroded away, and the fragments would float out into Childs River. That's what we've observed happening over the last couple of years.
Okay. Brad, I'm kind of with Jen on this, that, you know, the project you did in Dennis, I'd like to see the results of the, you know, more recent results. But also that's more a testament of how you guys did it. Who else would do it? It's a good example of, you know, showing us what you as a consultant proposed. So that is helpful to us, to me anyway. But I would like to see a more recent picture of that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just interject one thing about Brad's qualifications, and I hope that he'd do the work. We're going to have time since we're going to continue this. Brad could get a contract, a proposal to the applicant, and perhaps get rehired, assuming the project, you know, he could have a contract in place if the project's approved. Then you'd know he's hired.
Yeah, and I, for one, I'm not trying to sway you one way or the other. I was kind of giving Brad points that, you know, as a consultant, he's offered a solution that somebody else, in theory, could apply. But like Jen said, you know, we want to make sure we know, you know, that somebody that's qualified is employed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think it's for us to try to force you to use somebody or not, but you're proposing a method that we just want to make sure, you know, can be completed. That's all. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Commissioner comments, Courtney.
First of all, I agree with you, Jamie. I think it's important to know that the contractor is qualified, has the experience to do this. A technical question, the tiebacks that you have, if you look at the cross section that you put up, Mike, it shows that, at least in the schematic, that some of those parts of those tiebacks are exposed.
Yes.
Because of the grade. Is that correct?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay. And what is the material of those tiebacks?
They're typically either stainless or galvanized steel.
Yeah, I would recommend stainless in this, and particularly the better grade stainless. What is it? The stuff that doesn't deteriorate. Because particularly where it's exposed to the air and salt and everything else, it's going to eat that metal up in no time, and then you've got a failure. Other than that, I think the design is good, and I have no other questions. I'm just concerned about that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just stainless, but it's the top grade stainless that doesn't. I don't know the number. It's not. I don't believe it's 304. Maybe a higher number.
I'll have to speak with the marine contractor about that, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right. Kevin.
I guess, no questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Ron.
I think it's all been covered. You guys got great questions and good comments. I'm all set. Thank you.
All right. Steve. Steve, you're on mute.
That was a good start too. a fascinating project, and I thought the presentations were equally as interesting. These hard solutions that I know are always difficult for us to look at, but I agree with Jamie. This is a plan that was designed, and now somebody else could do it. But I'd feel much more comfortable after listening to your presentation if you were involved. Thank you.
All right. Betsy.
So I do have a question. I have confidence that Brad can restore a salt marsh, but the example that he showed, that was open to tidal flow. And I'm really concerned about these weep holes, because any kind, and Brad knows this too, any kind of this marine restoration, whether it's marsh or grass beds, are really dependent on water circulation. And so I'd like to know what the design of these weep holes are and what level of water circulation you'd expect from it. And Brad, you might have worked on other projects that you've done this.
I'll coordinate with Mike on that, on the weep hole design, and be able to, have some more information on that. I honestly haven't had a project with salt marsh restoration like what we're proposing behind a wall.
Yeah.
So it's a little unique, but
I mean,
but I have done the salt marsh restoration, using this methodology, just not behind a wall like this scenario we have. But I do believe it will hold. But we can get some more detail.
But I mean, you also agree with me that circulation is going to make or break this project. I mean, basically, if you have still water behind there.
Right. We don't want it so that it needs to flow back and forth, and you don't want a pooled area that would smother the plants, and you don't want it too dry so that it won't get any of the flush. So you're correct.
Okay, so if you could give us a little more information about that the next time you come back. But it was an imaginative design. But let's hope it works.
Is that a compliment? I can't tell.
You're
not
never
for you,
know.
Mike. It's for Brad.
So I was going to make a wise guy remark, but I actually think it might be a relevant but dumb question. Is we have flow through decking. Is there any such thing as flow through in sheet piling that would allow more than simply weep holes? You don't have to answer that. It's rhetorical.
Well, Jamie, yep. if there isn't sufficient circulation, as Brad pointed out, it's just not going to work. You're either going to have pooling or you're going to have dry spots, both of which won't work. If there's sufficient circulation, there's a good chance it could work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We can do a little research on that. And we're going to have a continuance that I'm hearing is going to be after Thanksgiving, I assume.
Not the 13th.
Yeah.
We're getting into cold time, Mike.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I'm storing up my coal.
Jen.
Yes. Brad, thank you for clarifying that the project in Dennis was not behind a wall, because I was going to ask that follow-up question. Where is that project again, Brad? So not the Bass River Bridge.
Bass River Bridge, I think, is the one he showed.
Yes, it was Route 28, and then there was Upper County Road. There was two bridges that they replaced at that time. The larger salt marsh restoration on either side of the Route 28 was at the southern portion, at Route 28, and the Upper County Road had a small section of salt marsh restoration.
And you showed us the one at Route 20.
At Route 28.
Okay.
I'll get you. I'll email you copies of the monitoring reports and instructions.
I'm just trying to see if I can't see it on near map, but I don't see a building like you had in the background of the one on 28. So.
Yeah,
I don't know what bridge
that picture that we showed was I was on the southeast side of Route 28 looking
Yeah, I'm
west.
not looking, I can't be looking at the,
So-
by Dinah's Pond?
Our crack
Kelly's Bay?
I
researcher,
don't know if
Brian
I don't think
Wall,
is it Swan River?
he found
Yeah.
a photo. Brian found a photo.
I have it on Google Maps.
I have it right here.
It wasn't. I'm sorry. It wasn't Bass River. I think it was.
Well, just send me
This
the
is-
information.
This is a real-time photo right here.
Okay, I do want to see a photo. If somebody can again go down to Dennis and just provide me the exact location, Brad, and that would be great.
Sure.
I can look at that.
Yeah.
That's an excellent photo. Thank you. My other question, Mike, is you said you had a marine contractor already on board. Who is it?
Cape Marine Contractors, Tom Doyle.
Tom Doyle? Okay.
Mhm.
And I had one more question. And I can't think of it. So if I think of it, I'll email it to you, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Jamie?
Hold on, one at a time. Jenny, all set?
Yeah, wait, wall, got that check, contractor check. Location check, yeah, just exact location, that would be great.
All
All
right.
set, thank you.
Courtney,
I just did some checking. It's grade 316 stainless. That's best for marine exposures. Other than that, I have nothing else.
all right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat regarding this project, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and just a reminder, we have open number 3 and number 9 simultaneously. It's kind of the same project, so just for the record, everybody understands whatever we do or don't do is regarding both of those projects. So, Mr. Borselli, you have a request for us.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, is the 4th available of December or is that not available?
Hang on one second, Mike. You said the 4th?
Mm-hmm.
It's right here. You're good.
Brad and Brian, if you're available, that would be the request I would have.
Is that December 4th? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
December 4th.
Yep, that works fine.
I'm available.
I have another question.
Yep.
Is Mike or Brad, is a chapter 91 required with this?
There is an existing chapter 91 for the dock and the wall and they are always to license and maintain. So this is maintenance or repair.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be able to comment on that.
Yeah,
Brian would be able to
they were
comment on
submitted.
that.
They were submitted to the file.
Okay,
Mike, even putting in the new sheet piling would be considered repair. It wouldn't require minor modification because you're adding more structure in there.
Ironically, it's not even subject to the license because it's landward of mean high water. Yeah, mean high water touches the old wall. We're going behind it, so we're really not even in the tidal zone. But reconstruction, if it were, is still considered maintenance.
Okay, interesting.
All right, anything else? All right, I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I'll make a
Courtney?
motion to continue these hearings until the 4th of December.
Gladfelter second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing, which is number 3 Charles River and number 9 until December 4th. Everybody get that? Questions or comments? Last call. All right, we're voting on the continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued these 2 hearings until December 4th. Thank you, Mr. Borselli, Mr.
Thank you.
Wall, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission.
Have a good night.
All right. All right, the next one had been previously continued. And so is the next one. So we are at Cindy Coach, trustee, 187 Penzance Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install restoration and mitigation plantings in accordance with Mass DEP number 25-4608. Renovate an existing boathouse, including roof alterations, relocate mitigation plantings, remove several dead and diseased trees, and maintain an existing path. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Mark Dibb to present his project.
Mr. Dibb, you're up, sir.
Good evening again, Mark Dibb for the record, for the applicant at 187 Penzance. The applicant is available if needed, but let me go through the presentation and open up to any questions. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
So the proposal tonight, there are a few main items related to the proposal. Number one is some architectural reconstruction of the existing boathouse in the same footprint, limited to just footprint only and architectural changes. There will be no disturbance on the ground related to the reconstruction of the boathouse. The second thing is a new sewer line that will have an ejector pump. The portion of that line on the slope along the existing stairs will be done by hand. The remaining construction will be by machine once you get up into the existing driveway area. The third item is the implementation of the Wilkinson Ecological Design Plans from 2021 that were previously approved under separate order of conditions, which had expired. So those plans would be considered and were submitted as part of this file, which included some mitigation and restoration in this area of the site and along in this area of the site. And then lastly of the proposed changes was to relocate two sections of that mitigation in the Wilkinson plan, 640 square feet right here, and a small area along the existing vegetation and the previously proposed mitigation. And we're proposing to add that out further on the point of this property in these three areas as shown. We did receive a staff report. Few items that came up in that were number one is an existing shed that was placed as a it's being used for some temporary storage of while this workshop is being reconstructed. It was identified as being in the number one, not permitted, and number two in the velocity zone. So we do want to relocate that to this area on site. And we are proposing to mitigate for this 152 square foot shed that is in the A zone. And these plantings that have been relocated do include this additional area of mitigation to offset that shed mitigation. I think another key component of the staff report is what the status of any work done according to the Wilkinson plan was done in the past, who will be the contractor in the future, and things like that. And I do believe it is basically the key component of the project. The applicant has hired Inman tree specialists that will be required to strictly follow the Wilkinson plan. Should be also any conditions that may be received in a new order of conditions, as the previous one is expired, any pre-construction conditions, meetings, et cetera. That'll be a key component, just implementation of this Wilkinson plan, as they are not the contractor moving forward. In my opinion, is really the key component. We did respond to some of the other items by staff. One scope item we're going to remove and continue to monitor, and would come back with either amended or a new filing, is the diseased tree aspect of the project. There was 52. A arborist identified some trees. Right now, we have removed that from the scope of this plan and any notes related to that. So the trees being planted are the trees per the Wilkinson design plan. Wasn't going to go, I'll let staff discuss any of their other questions that they believe might still be open, and would be happy to answer any other questions. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Thanks, Mark. Ken.
Gonna start with the easy part. Mark, do you have to go to ZBA for that boathouse? We've been asking for the plans on the boathouse. We received them this afternoon. We saw that you're putting a second floor on the boathouse.
I think Michael could maybe answer that question better
And
than
I
I am.
saw a whole bunch of notes regarding ZBA, and you know that if you have to file with ZBA before you file with us. So I don't mean to hit the hearing with this, but you sent it to us late this afternoon. So
there is an existing second floor, so it's some roof line changes.
Okay, so it's the dormers. There is an existing second
correct.
floor.
Yes.
Okay.
I was
So you're just
not
changing the
aware.
thing.
Yes, through everything I've seen and reviewed, I do not believe ZBA is required.
Okay, because I saw the notes on that architectural that ZBA, they were calling out certain sections of the zoning bylaw. You're gonna stick with, you don't have to go to ZBA.
I'm gonna.
That's the easy one, Mark. This is the easy question.
If we can continue discussing, I can.
Okay. Yeah, we're looking at it and we're like, what is this? What are all these ZBA notes? Did he file with ZBA? I did try to call the office, but I didn't get an answer. We did go on ZBA's website to look at their current projects. It wasn't listed. To see if they issued a recent decision. It wasn't listed. So that's why I'm just asking.
Okay.
All right. Now on to the plantings. Okay, so kayak rack is not to be put back onto the beach. Okay, good. I have concerns that the last time we went out on site, certain areas were lawn. We went out on the site, during the course of these continuances, and even though there was even though the order of condition has been expired, there was huckleberry sod, I guess, planted and didn't survive, so it's dead. So work has been done without a permit. I'm concerned that a major portion of Wilkinson plan is 17,000 square feet of invasive species management, yet all the bayberry and beach plum are in the driveway. So I'm like, we had all the little cedar trees planted. We were told that, you know, nothing had been done, but the cedar trees happened to be in the exact same spot as the Wilkinson plan. I'm pretty sure they didn't seed themselves naturally. So I have concerns with the fact that all this plant material is on site. Some of it has been installed. It is now dead. And I mean, I'd really like some, I'm assuming, can you provide the herbicide applicator's license that Inman Tree Specialist holds, please? I forgot to ask for that earlier. And because some of this invasive species work does require an herbicide applicator. So I'd like that information. And again, I'm concerned that all this invasive species work, I mean, you know, invasive species management has to be done, yet there's, as Fallon's picture showed, quite a bit of plant material sitting in the driveway. So I'm kind of concerned at the timing of all that.
Yeah, I think, should I wait for comments?
That's just my concern. It's like, why is the plant material on site when they haven't even done the invasive species work yet? And if they did it without a permit. I'm questioning the sequencing, that's all. And I know you may not have the answer to that, but you know, we know the plant material showed up on site within the last couple of weeks. We were out there, it wasn't there. We were out there, it's there. We're out there, there's lawn. We go out there again, there's an area of, you know, not doing very well dead plantings. So that's a concern of mine. And the only other question I had, Mark, is on your plan, and I know I had discussed this with Matt and Mr. George when I was on site, they had concerns that they had a little area where the dogs like to go and do their little dog business. You have it on your plan carved out, but you have it shaded as being revegetated. Can you confirm, is that area actually going to be revegetated, or is it still going to be where the dogs go? And if it is where the dogs go, where are we going to put that square footage?
Yeah, so yeah, that specific item was not on the staff report, but I did hear about that. So a portion of it will be revegetated. If there's anything that's not, we will identify that square footage and add the appropriate amount of additional mitigation to replace that.
And also, I mean, there was a lot of questions. I mean, I remember this project because it had part of the boardwalk on it. I think one of the big questions we had the last time with Wilkinson, and I'm sure the board remembers this, how are they getting out there? How are they getting out to the little pond area? How are they moving the material out there? I mean, the last time we heard, you know, talk of amphibious vehicles coming in and landing on the beach, and then, you know, widening the path for, oh, what was it called, Jamie? It was some big machine that they were going to bring out there. A lull, what am I thinking of? It had some like large machine, and it wasn't going to fit down that little path. So how are they going to get, and I forgot to ask you this earlier, Mark, I'm just looking at Wilkinson's plan because I'm kind of trying to figure out where all the heavy invasive work is being done, but how are they going to get all those plants up there? That existing path isn't very wide. Are they going to bring them out with like a little gator? I don't know.
I do know that the applicant has permission to come in from the neighbor's driveway. I'm just trying to pull up a plan that might show that, but that would be
The neighbor
a
next to the pond? Okay.
correct.
Well, I'm gonna need that written, we'll need to see that written permission, please, Mark.
Yep, and that can be also a piece of the protocols from the new contractor. We can get their input as well to make sure they're capable to use that driveway and do the work.
Mhm.
Well,
'Cause-
let me hear from the commissioners first, and then I'll respond to everything, if that's fine.
Okay. Hang on. Looking some plan approved mitigation added to the plan. Taking place. Building permit. I think that's all for right now, Mr. Chairman. I think a lot of
Right.
our concerns are just with the plantings.
Okay. Alyssa,
Thank you. Just a couple of follow-up questions. Mark, I didn't get a chance to look at your plan. So what we were looking at, the relocated mitigation, that accounts for the shed and the areas that you have been proposing to remove, relocate all along, right?
Correct.
And then so you'll be adding to it for the dog area.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So in the order, Wilkinson was the sole entity to conduct the work on site, and we know that they have not been involved. Do we know who has been involved? Has it been the same company this whole time? It'd be helpful to have an understanding of what work was performed, because it looks like every planting section is in a different phase. The pond section looks untouched, whereas half of the backyard section looks like it's been completely replanted, and the other half looks like invasives have grown back in if it has been worked on. So having some kind of understanding of what phase of the work we're in will be extremely helpful going forward, so we have some sort of idea of what's left to be done and if they're even going to undertake these 3 areas again. So I don't know if you have that information or perhaps Mr. George does, but that might be beneficial.
Okay.
I'm just going through Fallon's notes here. And we're not working on the diseased trees at this time. When we were talking about the boat renovations, we've just been seeing a lot of those very vague notes about we're going to renovate this in the future and what does that mean. So when we look at it at the staff level at building permits, if we see a second story going on, dormers going on, changes to the roof line, that involves re-permitting. So it's bringing that applicant back either with a separate permit before this board, some kind of administrative approval after going to you guys for a revised plan. So it just elongates that process. So if they do have any more they want to do besides dormers, it'd be great to let the board know now so we can permit it now, and it won't delay the building permit anymore when that comes in. And then what about the topping of the trees down by the point? I believe you had said that they would like to maintain them at their current topped height. Is that still the case?
It's still a request, but the applicant would be for the commission, the flagpole at the very end of the point. It was the flag that's been flying there for years and years, was getting caught in the trees. The applicant did do some tree work in that area. He is respectfully requesting to be able to manage essentially a radius around the pole, but ultimately it's up to the decision of the commission to condition what work happens there, and he will follow whatever that condition is.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think topping was an extreme choice. Probably, we would be amenable to pruning here and there, but that'll be up to the commission as to what they want to see happen. I think that's all I have for the moment. Thank you.
okay.
Jamie, can I jump in there?
Yes.
Mark, do we know who did the tree work? Is it the same company that we're asking to do this work that's been doing work out there without a permit?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
So if I'm following this right, they've been doing a lot of work that is not permitted, but they haven't done the work that was permitted. Simple way to put it.
Yeah.
I think, Jamie, what it happened was that permit expired and work was either not completed, was continued to be performed. Additional work was done, hence the topping of the trees. And again, as Alyssa said and Fallon pointed out, it's kind of hard to understand what actually, there were a lot of different sections to this project, and it's really hard to determine what has actually happened out there. You know, first we were told nothing had been planted, yet we go out there and these small cedars are in the exact location as on the Wilkinson plant. So we knew something went out, something was going on out there. We know the area by the pond hasn't been touched, but there's new plantings in. From the last site visit we conducted to this past site visit, more work has been done. The picture Fallon has in her most recent updated staff report clearly shows the area where the dog area is with the she calls it figure 1 mode patch with new plantings as of October 28th. So there's been some work, we're not quite sure what, and it would be helpful to know what has been completed, what each 3 sections is done, and doing that. So that's where we are.
Okay. So Mark, that's gonna be part of your homework is to identify those areas, what's been done, what has to be done. All right, we're gonna go with commissioner comments. Ron, we're gonna start with you.
Yeah, I agree that the chronology of what's been done out there would help for everyone to understand what goes on and a goal going forward, because this isn't going anywhere. That's my comment. Thank you.
All right. Steve.
I like how Ron put it, but all we're dealing with basically is the vegetation. The other parts of the plan we're comfortable with, as I see it.
Okay. Betsy.
So I have a question for Jen, or maybe for Mark. Was the condition of the permit that is expired now that Wilkinson do the work? And if Wilkinson wasn't going to do the work, were you supposed to be notified as to who was going to do the work?
Correct.
Okay, that's my only comment.
Okay, if I'd like to interject something right there about that, because a lot of people are concerned that we're dictating who does the work. We're not. The thing is that when an applicant comes to us and says, you know, Mark Div is going to do the work, we say we want to be notified if that changes. It's not a judgment on Mark, or it's not a judgment on the new contractor. It's simply the fact that we want to make sure that the new contractor understands the conditions that were applied to the project. So I just want to be clear that we're not dictating who does the work, and we're not judging anyone. But sometimes, you know, somebody brings in somebody, an applicant will bring in a contractor. They listen to the hearing, they understand what the conditions are, but then somebody else gets hired that doesn't understand what the conditions are. And that creates problems for us because now the work doesn't seem to be getting done the way it was permitted. And it's you know, it's not malicious, it's just confusing. So I just wanted to point that out. Betsy, I don't know if
that was
done. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was my comment.
All right. Courtney.
I'll second exactly what you're saying, Jamie. It's really important because there just seems to be a lot of stuff out there that isn't being done or should be done and so forth, and we're wasting a lot of time on it. I'd like to see a document with a timeline, and when they do a task, it gets signed off and submitted to the office so we know. The other thing is, I want to come back to the boathouse. So you want to get us to approve some renovations to the second floor roof line, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so, but there seems to be some question about whether the ZBA needs to become involved. So my question to you is does the town recognize the second floor of that boathouse as habitable space?
Yes.
You're sure? I'd like to see some document.
Let him answer.
It definitely has, it's usable storage space. And it's, you know, it does have existing stairs, for storage.
So it's not habitable space.
I would have to, maybe Michael George, once, I'm gonna speak one more time and I might ask, Michael George to be promoted the applicant. Maybe he can answer those
I
questions.
mean, if the town recognizes it as a habitable space, then you can go ahead and get a permit to make renovations. Strikes me that if it's not habitable space and he wants to turn it into habitable space, that's where the ZBA comes in. Because you're creating a mother-in-law apartment.
Okay.
I happen to be very familiar with this stuff. And it has bearing on what goes on. So, because we want to have you go to ZBA before you come to us. That's where I'm going with this.
Oh.
Yep.
You good?
I
Yeah,
mean, we can send you.
Hold on.
I just want answers, that's all.
Courtney,
Tonight I'd
will
like
this,
an answer so we can make a decision.
All right. Anything else, Courtney?
No.
Jen?
Courtney, we'll send you, if Alan hasn't already done so, we'll send you what Mark sent us this afternoon, which provide the architecturals for the boathouse. So you'll have a chance to look at what's being submitted, okay? Fallon didn't send them to you because they came in kind of later this afternoon after we talked to Mark later in the afternoon, so it's not Mark's fault. We'll send those over to you so you can look at them, Court, okay?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
the whole question is if it's habitable space, it has to go to ZBA.
We'll get the ZBA fixed. We'll get the ZBA question answered, Courtney.
Okay, that's what I
We will
want.
get it answered, trust me.
Thank you. No other
Not a problem.
questions.
Thank you. All right, so you're getting pretty beat up and I apologize for that, but it is what it is. But, Jen, you just said that got the plans today and not Mark's fault. Not Mark personally, but the applicant. You know, his staff comment responses are from October 9th, where it says they would provide the plans. So that was a couple weeks ago. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But we should address this the same way as we do any floor alteration, that we want something that says it'll structurally carry the new work. As far as zoning goes, all they're required to do is apply. They don't have to get approval before they see us. And then third, remember, the building department has to sign off on the zoning piece anyway. So for our purposes, we want to know that the second floor, habitable or not currently, whether it can support the new construction, and if not, what's going to be done to support it. Mark, what's being done at the workshop? Has that been previously permitted?
Yeah, so they have a current building permit to replace some windows and doors. However, there was a small area of excavation that was to disconnect a gas line. So I believe the work being performed is under a current building permit. That I am also I have not seen anything further than the building permit and believe it's done under a permit they have, a valid permit they have right now.
Okay, so I have a question and a comment about that. Jen, you know that that we permitted that?
I'd have to look back at the old permit, Mr. Chairman. Alyssa has an answer.
Alyssa?
An answer for
There
everything.
was something proposed. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it had to do with the workshop. I can look on the old plans for that. That said, if that is interior work, that would essentially be out of our purview there. I can't recall, Mark, someone said they had, looked at the workshop as they walked by and saw maybe some new plumbing. Can you just verify that there was no water lines or anything trenched, or at least let us know so we can permit that after the fact? There was something. I can't remember what it was, but I think it was exterior.
Okay, so when I was on site, I saw work being done outside trenching. That might be the gas line work that Mark was talking about. I also saw the floor ripped up inside. There's all new plumbing. I mean, the whole thing was basically gutted. So that's a big question for me. And I think I asked you about this, Jen, but I'm going to ask anyway. Are these two properties separate? Are they the same? Why do we get we're told it's 187, but it's really 191. I don't understand that. Does it matter?
What do you mean 187 to 191?
The application says 187 Penzance Road. The house is 191, the main house, where the work's being done.
Oh, I've always known it as 187 Penzance Road. But I can check into that, Mr. Chairman.
I think somebody should, because if it's been a merged property, then that's fine too. And I'm not saying we should treat it any differently, but I'd really like to know, because every time I go out there, it says 187, but the work is at 191. And lastly, okay, so you said we got the architecturals today?
We got what they're calling a floor plan key that does show some architectural renditions. So we'll be sending, like I said, if Fallon didn't send that along this evening, we will send it along tomorrow morning so you have that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Kevin.
At this point, I can't think of anything else I could come up with. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat regarding this project, Mr. Chairman. No hands raised either.
All right, Mark, anything you want to add at this point?
Yeah, a couple quick things. I wanted to clarify one thing, that the tree work around the flagpole was done by maintenance crews of the owner, was not done by Inman. I thought you.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mark.
I thought you were talking about the other, any other work. So I just want
No.
to clarify that. Number one.
Thank
number
you.
two.
Good enough.
Shoot, just lost my train of thought. I think it's obviously key to make sure Inman, Cape and Islands, the town are all appropriately on board, up to speed, et cetera, moving forward. I do know there was an perceived urgency by the applicant to install some plants. And I know there's some plants, unfortunately, on site that I know he would love to get in the ground. But I'd ask for a few more minutes if you could promote the applicant up. He has a couple things to say and a couple responses as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Mr. George, I'll be promoting you up as panelist. Okay.
Good evening to the commission. I've been sitting through the session, so I'm familiar with the questions that are outstanding. So thank you for allowing me to join in on this. A few things just to clarify. On the boathouse, there is no request for change of use. It's a water use property. It has been since 1912, which is when it was installed. There is a second floor. There are stairs to get to it. It is used for storage. You will get the plans. We do have those already, and they are really just to provide slightly higher ceiling capacity for the upper floor because of the things we store up there, and better ventilation. So that's all. There's no change in use. There's no other structural thing. It's a stone structure with a wooden roof. So the only thing that we're filing with the town is a request to modify the roof to provide better ventilation and, again, a little bit more height in the center line. So that's number one. Number two, to answer the question about the difference between 187 and 191, there are two properties here, there are two homes here, but they are owned by the same owner. The same owner is the 187 Penzance Trust, irrevocable trust. It's a trust that my wife and I established essentially for our children, and we are the overseers of it. My wife is the trustee. I am the authorized signator and decision maker on everything. So that's why you see 187, although the guest house is on the 187 property. The main house is at 191. They're shared in every dimension. They're not separated properties. They're just separated addresses. It's a 10-acre property in total. Those two homes, reside on it. So that's that. Let me address the sequencing. Well, a couple things you asked about herbicide licensing. Inman is working very closely with IAM, which is the herbicidal company that we've been working with for both, dealing with the tree diseases, which we've been in a foot race, to address. We do get a number of these trees treated to try to kill the turpentine beetle infection that's taking place. We have provided that license before, so that should be on file someplace. But if the commission needs that again, we're happy to provide that. That's the herbicide license. And that company is working very closely with Inman Tree. I know Inman is a second generation company here in the Falmouth area. I'm sure you're familiar with them. They're a very reputable firm. And we've enjoyed working with them now here for the last few years. So hopefully that answers and addresses that issue. As it relates to the sequencing, we originally had the Wilkinson plan, as you know. The commission was good enough to approve that plan. We began executing on that plan by planting the cedar trees on the point, on the eastern point of the property. But we procured everything that was approved in that plan. So that includes the huckleberry moss, all of the bayberry, everything, including the cedar trees. Excuse me. We went ahead and planted them on the eastern point as per the approved plan. And when it came to going and planting them on the western side of the property, including in front of really where the guest house is, we were advised that they did not think that any plantings over in that area that faces the southwest would hold up. So we discontinued the plan. We asked the nursery to hold on to the remaining cedar trees, the huckleberry sod, and everything else. So they had continued to do that for us. When we reapproached this year, with, again, that plan having been expired, we assumed that that plan would be reinstated if we were requesting it. However, we observed the area in the southwest corner to find that one area is completely not plantable, and nothing would survive in there over a winter, but then the area around the pond would be. So they went ahead and planted in the pond area the cedar trees that the nursery asked us to take delivery on since we purchased them more than a year ago. We also took the remaining plans from them because, again, they had been paid for, they had been sitting on site. So we took delivery of them, but we were informed that the huckleberry sod in particular was a sensitive material and needed to be planted in the ground within 3 days. So we went ahead and put exactly as was approved in the Wilkerson plan. We put the huckleberry sod in ground and we began watering it and treating it. I don't believe any of it is dead. I personally was hand watering it myself today, and none of it is dead. So I was surprised to hear that comment, and anybody's welcome to come on out and observe it. It's not exactly thriving because we're not in the middle of the summer, but it's certainly not dying either. It is as it was when delivered. The remaining plants I asked Inman to hold up on and not plant anymore, just because of the issues of sequencing, until we got further approval from you as to where we could plant the remaining plants. So that's the only reason why they remain in the driveway. We continue to water them. They will still survive, but not forever, obviously, in those pots. But the nursery did require us to take delivery on them since we purchased them more than a year ago, and they were kind enough to hold off on them. And then the last thing was asked about the trees. I apologize. I was the one that approved that we have a gentleman by the name of Ted Fitzel. You may know him. He lived on the property for almost 30 years in total. He was in service to the Clark family. He used to trim those trees for any time the flag needed to be flown at half-mast. And Ted was still living on the property. I'm forgetting exactly what it was. I don't know that it was September 11th, but there was an event where we wanted to honor our nation's, regulation around how we fly the flag. We light it at night, all of that. But he went to lower it to half-mast to realize that it was getting caught up in the trees. So he trimmed the top of the trees as he had been maintaining them in the past. But with Mr. Clark having passed away in 2015, the property just wasn't being maintained in that same way. And so the trees grew to a level that they needed to be topped, and Ted went and topped them. I'm not blaming it on Ted. He asked me if he should do it, and I'm the one that approved that, to honor the half-mast flag conduct. So I'm responsible for that. If you don't want us to maintain that, we won't. And I guess, in days when the flag's supposed to be flown at half-mast, we can take it down altogether, I guess. We don't want it to get caught in the trees. So anyway, to the commission, if there's some other questions, I'm happy to answer them. Oh, as it relates to the tool shed, again, as these projects go in these old homes, the simplest things become complex. We went to basically just get the building restabilized and so forth. It's part of a construction from 1912. It's an original part of the foundation of the house. Has been modified a few times over the years, but we were having sagging and cracking and things that pointing was no longer being able to support. So we went to the plan to simply redo the wooden structure on top and reconstitute it. What we found was that the entire concrete floor had been completely compromised due to a few things. One is principally that there was a massive water leak from one of the pipes under the ground that over many, many years just compromised the sand and the dirt such that there wasn't dirt under all of that concrete floor. And it being somewhere between 3 and 5 inches in different areas, it basically broke down. So we ended up having to crack it out of there. We had to go and reconnect pipes. There was a heating unit in it. There was a gas heater. We had to disconnect the gas heat pipes. There is irrigation systems that are actually controlled from that building. And so that's why you saw some trenching. All of that will be filled back in. We had to basically find the source of where the broken pipes were that were generating the leakage underneath it. We've done that. We've now had a new concrete floor. We had to put in a bunch of sand and hard pack, have that packed. It's now been, there's been concrete put back onto it. So now we have a subfloor in there that's going to hold up. There isn't a ton left to be done. There is a big building permit. They're doing some structural work just to hold the building up. They are going to do some repointing now, and some additional work. And we, now that we've gone and reconstituted the foundation in that building, and we do have work to do. I still have the gas company coming back out because there's a pipe. There's still a pipe close to the building, and we want to remove it all together. They've got to do some rerouting of some of the piping and so forth. But anyway, I hope that answers your question about that, and any other questions that you have.
Thank you, sir. Jen? No? I thought
That was a lot of information and a lot of, thank you, Mr. George. Some of the things I picked up on you saying, did you say the work was done over by the pond?
I don't know if it's completed, but I do know the cedar trees over by the pond are complete. But I don't know
about, you said the work over by the pond was completed. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to misquote. So I will say I don't know whether or not the work has been done. I know we had to get the cedar trees in. We were going to lose those. So that was that.
Okay, and then you stated something that you had an area of planting that was too shaded or in the wintertime, so the plants weren't going to grow there. Are we still planning to put plants there?
No, I didn't say shaded. They got exposed too much to the southwest wind and water, and that's the area that's up around the riprap that is in the channel that faces to the southwest. Okay. So that's what we are relocating, actually out to the point, which is the eastern point. Yeah.
What I think, Mr. George, is we really do need a detailed written kind of assessment of what's happened out there. It's great that you've told us that, but we need the kind of, the pond area. This is what's been done. This is what's not been done. This area, this is what's been done. This is what hasn't been done. It'll make it a lot easier for us to evaluate. It's a large property. You've got a lot going on out there. And it would be really helpful moving forward. You also stated that you contracted with Jerry Cannon, and he is your herbicide, and he is aware of the Wilkinson plan and has agreed to implement the Wilkinson plan, because that's not what his letter says. His letter talks about the beetle, the trees, and treating the beetle. It says nothing about taking over the work from Wilkinson's plan. So if I could get something from Mr. Cannon that says that he has reviewed Wilkinson's plan and he's willing to, conduct that work, that would be helpful, because it's not what this letter says. And those are my only comments to Mr. George's comments, I guess.
May I respond just to what you just said briefly, Ms. Chairwoman?
Yes.
Thank you. It's very simple what's been done and what's not been done. The only thing that has been done has been the planting of the cedar trees exactly to the Wilkinson plan and the planting of the huckleberry sod exactly to the Wilkinson plan. Nothing else has been done. Absolutely nothing. So it's that simple. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Mark, I think Jen brought up a good point that we have that letter from, I'm looking for it, Cannon, but
Jerry
Mark,
Cannon
said Inman was doing the work. So just clarify who's doing what.
Sure. Inman's doing the work, and the herbicide work is being done by Cannon. He's been treating the property also for about 20 years. Jerry Cannon has IAM. He's a certified herbicidist. Yeah. So he's been working on the property for 20 years. But I'm happy to, and you have his license number. Again, Inman's doing the planting and the watering, and IAM is doing the herbicide treatment. It's nothing more complicated than that.
All right, Betsy.
So, Mr. George, all that information has been very interesting, but it has to be put in writing and it has to be put in the record.
Yeah.
And that's what Jen is asking for. Yeah. It might be very simple, but you have to put it in writing and submit it to the record.
I'm happy to.
Thank you. Courtney.
Yeah, just and included in that record is a statement from the herbicide guy that he is going to be implementing the herbicide controls, invasive control measures that are in the Wilkinson design plan. I mean, that should be clear.
I'm happy to do that.
All right, Alyssa.
Just to cover all of our bases, Jen, is it worth, since we're continuing anyway, to re-advertise with 2 addresses?
Yeah, probably.
So it'll be the same hearing.
Quirky thing with the addresses.
Okay, just so we have it all.
Yeah.
Legally correct. Okay, thank you.
And Mark or Mr. George, if you could get something from Inman and how they're going to access that pond property. It is called a lull, Jamie. I just looked it up. It looks like a big weird looking forklift thing. I just remember it from when they said they were going to bring it down that little path and you were questioning it because it looks like a pretty large machine. So Mark or Mr. George, if you could get something from Inman on how they're actually going to access that pond parcel, because that path is pretty narrow. How we're going to do that, that would be great. Thank you.
Ron.
Just a quick question. What are they going to do with the plants that Mr. George Barton has sitting in his driveway right now?
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Well, they'll be healed in for the winter. I mean, it's survivable. I mean, nurseries carry them over.
Ron,
Kevin,
this project has been, we permitted this project years ago.
Yeah.
We're not responsible for when the plant showed up on site. There's no permit out there for any work to be done, so.
That was one of the questions why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
They can't do any work and the plants are sitting there. So he has to do something with them. Mr. George, you have to do something with them.
I do indeed. I'd like to put them in the ground. That's why I would like to request, from the commission to at least approve that portion of this plan.
You've had 5 years to put the plants in. Why is it never mind. Kevin, did I see your hand up?
Just in frustration, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. No questions.
All right.
A lot of these plants, Mr. George, are going in areas where you have invasive species management. I'm looking at the plan. A lot of the bayberry, a lot of the beach plum is right in areas that are honeycombed for proposed invasive management to remove state listed invasive plant species.
And that was permitted how long ago?
I don't remember the exact date the old permit was. Alyssa, do you have that information? Because I don't.
For a year, right?
I don't have the date, but I do have in the order the plans referenced were spring of 21.
Okay.
So the point would be the
21?
plants can't get installed until the invasives are removed. So it'll just
And
take
the
more
invasive
time.
work has not been started yet, correct?
That's
No,
what we've
Mr.
been
George
told.
just stated that. Yes.
I'm just clarifying.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I saw shrubs out there, but I'll caveat that with another site visit.
Okay. All right, Mr. Dibb, you have a request for us?
You're not allowing anything on the 13th, correct?
Correct.
So, the next available hearing is the 4th.
Correct.
Yeah, we would request a continuance to the 4th.
Are these plants gonna survive that long?
The request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue this hearing till December 4th.
Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until 12:04. Last call, questions or comments? Anyone?
Can we allow him to interim plant the stuff that's just laying in the garage, in the driveway? I mean,
Plant where, Courtney?
There's invasives
Where?
in the way.
huh?
There's
Wow.
invasives everywhere. I just
What
stated
if I
where
get
these
the
plants need to
invasives
go.
removed?
Okay. All right.
What if I get the invasives removed and just sequence it that way? Courtney, I think that's a smart suggestion. Thank you. So
I
I'll
mean,
get
it's
the
just-
invasives removed and I'll get these plants put in according to the plan and then request, that gets approved. But I'll do it exactly as it was approved previously.
Yeah, I mean, it just,
But you don't have a, hold on.
You
You
don't
don't have
have
a
a
permit right
permit.
now.
Santa Claus
So-
will be coming shortly after the 4th, so,
Courtney, enough.
I'm not sure that was appropriate, Mr. Byrd, but
Oh, man. All right. So, yeah, go ahead. Jen?
Mr. George, what you're asking us to do is to proceed without a permit, remove the invasives in a resource area and plant the plants and then have us approve the plan?
No.
Is that what sequence were you thinking of?
just approve a plan you had already previously approved. Yes, I am asking for that. I don't think that's an unreasonable
That's not
thing to do.
acceptable to the staff, Mr. Chairman. We can't allow that to happen. We can't recommend you allowing that to happen.
Well, plus there's amendments to it. So, all right. So we have a motion and a second to continue this until December 4th. Voting on the continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll aye.
Steve.
And
It is unanimous. We have continued this until December 4th. Thank you, Mr. Dibb. Thank you, Mr. George.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Great
George.
night.
Good night. I'm trying to get you out. He just left.
Oh. All right, next up, request to extend an existing order of conditions. Daniel Celine, 95 Adamancet Road, Falmouth, Mass. DEP number 25-4689. Request a 1-year extension. Jen.
Staff recommends a 1-year extension.
Gladfelter, so moved.
Driscoll
Bird
second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue a 1-year extension. Questions or comments? We're voting on the extension. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have granted a 1-year extension. Next up is to vote orders of conditions. First up, Greg House, 74 Pequasset Avenue, Falmouth, Mass.
Hang tight, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Sorry.
Nope, that's all good.
Boathouse.
No, I know, Mr. Chairman, I'm getting there. Calm down. I'm working on it. I just can't find my pile. Here it is. All right, who do we have first? All right, sorry. Oh, this is a little boathouse that they're redoing on Squetig Harbor.
Rebuild a pier, the
Rebuild a
boathouse.
pier, but they have to take the boathouse off the pier, then rebuild it, then put the boathouse back on. They've got to get a barge up in there. We had concerns with the beach grass, like almost like coming and going. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not there. So as far as the dock and beach boathouse go, I don't think we have any real concerns. They're just rebuilding it. We do have to make sure they can get a barge to lift that house up. That's pretty shallow in there. There's a big push in the town of Bourne and Falmouth to have that area dredged, so it is pretty shallow in there. And then we have the issue of all the trees on the bank that are being managed, and most of the trees under the RDA that were basically supposed to be selectively thinned, they appear to have been removed, and all of the vegetation is being managed to a certain height. So we have concerns with that as well.
Betsy.
I just had a comment, which I didn't make during the hearing, but I'm just going to comment that I think it's appropriate for you to mention the beach grass, but I also think that it could have been sand washed over in a storm.
Yeah,
and
we
then
don't really know.
We don't know. So I think it's appropriate to mention, but that happens in areas, as you well know, in areas like that. The sand will go over and then it'll blow off and the grass will come up again. But it doesn't hurt to mention it.
I mean, we can make a finding and just say, the grass has to be, remain natural and undisturbed by man.
Right.
I don't know what we're going to do with the bank.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you should bring that up, but it may be that we're going to have to go back and revisit that.
Well, we can tell them at least to stop maintaining the shrubs at a height of like an equal height. It's very easy when you go out into a field or you go on to a site visit. If everything's like this, nature doesn't grow like that.
Just like what I looked at today.
Natural. That's not natural. So, okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. I didn't have anything else.
So I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Third, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Anything else anybody want to see in there? All right, we're voting. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Third, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Janice K. Lewis, 76 Hamlin Avenue, Falmouth, Mass.
This was Tom Bunker's plan. It was a vegetation management plan, redesigning of some hardscape. Is Angela rebuilding the wall or are we just shoring the wall up? I think she's rebuilding like a little landscape wall in the back. Again, reconfiguring some hardscape. And then a planting plan done by Crawford. I didn't have really any. I think the only concern we actually had, we liked Angela's planting thing. I think we had asked for a revised plan because it looked like she had built in like one of those lower shrub area vistas. So we wanted to actually see that on a plan.
That's been received.
Okay, perfect. And then We just had some questions about her planting all that chokeberry down that narrow path, but if she thinks it'll work, okay. We thought it was a little narrow, but it's fine.
All right. Anything else anybody want in there?
I'll make a motion that we issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. And last call, questions or comments? All right, we're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll eye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, vote amended order of conditions. Friends of Nobska Light, Inc., 233 Nobska Road, Falmouth, Mass.
Just some more, I guess, invasive species work being done over there.
Drainage.
This was kind of cool. Yeah, the drainage, changing
Yeah,
the
the
drainage.
drainage. Project to amend the OC to add the drainage system for additional grading in the front yard. Yeah, and they're doing the grading in the area, the knotweed. Yeah. Perfect. It's looking good up there.
Yeah, so it's the normal
Yeah.
condition. Looking for a
Anything anybody
motion?
wants in there? Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to issue an amended order of conditions for Friends of Nobska Light.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an amended order of conditions. Anything anybody else? Anything else anybody want in there? All right, we're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll eye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
Thank you. All right, before we adjourn, we have a small piece of other business. Betsy.
So just want you all to know that we're in the process of, we put out an RFP and we've had a site visit with contractors yesterday to do the Upper Coonamessett River restoration. And if any of you would like a tour of it at this point, let me know and we'll set a time for a walk. It's always interesting to see the before and then the after.
Ooh,
I'll take you up on that at one point.
Okay, good. But before the contractor gets there.
Yeah, yes. Are you implying that I'm slow or that you're that fast getting a contractor?
Well, no, I mean, it'll take a while to get the contractor and you're slow.
Wow, I think that was a dig. All right. Last motion, who wants it?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Driscoll second.
Gladfelter, aye.
Bird eye.
O'Brien, aye.
Driscoll eye.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We are adjourned.